Jonathan Hayes never imagined the sound of a cafeteria. A simple, harmless chorus of clattering trays and teenage chatter could one day feel like a knife to the chest. But the moment he pushed open those double doors, the moment his daughter's small, trembling face turned toward him, the moment he saw her being shoved like she wasn't even human, something inside him snapped so quietly, so completely, that even the air around him seemed to fall still. But the story didn't begin there, not with the fall of a lunch tray, not with the laughter, not even with the hateful words that sliced through his daughter's heart. It started 6 hours earlier, in a place far from the marble halls of Petton Academy. Jonathan sat in his Washington, D.C. office, surrounded by mountains of reports, budget audits, policy drafts, investigation documents thick as bricks, each one carrying his name on the last page, the kind of papers that could make or break a nation's children, the kind of responsibility that kept him from his own. 3 months, that was how long he'd worn the title United States Secretary of Education. 3 months of 40-hour days and nightly briefings. 3 months of pushing reforms through bureaucratic concrete. 3 months of believing that if he worked hard enough, fought long enough, sacrificed enough, maybe he could fix something. Maybe his daughter would grow up in a better system than the one he came from. He didn't hear the knock at first. His eyes burned from staring at tiny print. His pen hovered halfway over a report when his assistant stepped inside. "Sir, the conference call with the governor starts in 5 minutes." Jonathan nodded, or thought he did, but his gaze had fallen to his phone. A muted notification glowed on the screen. A birthday reminder. Maya 12 today. For a moment, everything stopped. The pen slipped from his fingers. He leaned back slowly, staring at the little photo on his lock screen. Maya on the steps of Petton Academy, backpack straps pulled tight, uniform neatly pressed, her smile lighting half the frame. That was a year ago. Before the job change, before the 14-hour days, before exhaustion became a lifestyle, before she started telling him school's good, "Dad, don't worry about me." He unlocked the phone, scrolling through messages. They were all the same, short, cheerful, polite. Always polite, like she didn't want to bother him. Like she was afraid to ask for more time, more presence, more father. He didn't want to admit it, but her last message kept replaying in his mind from their call last night. She'd sounded off, tired in a way he couldn't place. Too quiet, too careful. "Sir," his assistant repeated. Jonathan looked at the stack of reports, the blinking reminder light, his daughter's smiling face frozen in pixel. Perfect innocence, and something fell into place. "Cancel the call," he said. The assistant blinked. "Sir, I said cancel it. Reschedule for tomorrow." "But the governor tomorrow," Jonathan repeated, already standing, grabbing his coat, grabbing the keys he barely used anymore. "I'm going to see my daughter." 2 hours, that was the drive between D.C. and Petton Academy. 2 hours that he had told himself he didn't have anymore. 2 hours that suddenly felt more urgent than anything happening in the White House, in Congress, in the entire education system. He spent the first half hour on work calls, tying up loose ends, delegating emergencies, apologizing to 3 different staff members for blowing up the schedule. Then, at a stoplight, he paused and turned his phone off. Not silent, off, for the first time in months. The quiet that followed was almost frightening. Like his mind didn't know what to do with itself. He rolled the window down. The spring air washed over him, soft and warm. For a strange moment, he felt 12 again, back in his mother's old Toyota, driving home from school, windows open, wind slapping his cheeks. A memory hit him. Maya at age 6, laughing as she stuck her head out the car window, braids whipping everywhere. Her mother yelling, "Maya, baby, get back inside." Her giggle, his wife's smile, the sunlight in her eyes. Jonathan blinked hard. He hadn't thought about that day in years. The school appeared soon on the horizon. But before he pulled in, he made a detour to a small deli 2 blocks away. The same one he used to take Maya to before her mother passed. Before life rearranged itself and left empty spaces he never fully learned to fill. The bell over the door jingled. The older woman behind the counter looked up and grinned. "Well, look what the wind dragged back in," she said. "I was about to put your picture on a milk carton." Jonathan chuckled. "Been busy?" She raised a brow. "Too busy to show up here, that's a crime." "Yeah," he murmured, rubbing the back of his neck. "Too busy." "What can I get you?" "Two turkey and Swiss," he said. "Extra pickles." "Ah," she smiled. "Maya's favorite." His throat tightened. "Yeah, you taking them to her?" He nodded. "She'll love that." The woman said, "Kids remember the little things." He hoped so. God, he hoped so. He grabbed the paper bag, thanked her, and returned to the car. As he drove the last few blocks, he rehearsed what he'd say to Maya. Something small, something gentle, something honest. "I missed you. I'm sorry. I'll do better." But when he pulled into Petton Academy, all of those words dissolved. The campus rose like something out of an architectural magazine. Stone columns, glass windows that gleamed like ice, manicured lawns carved into perfect squares. A fountain spraying arcs of water high into the midday sun. Everything about it screamed privilege, legacy, prestige. Jonathan told himself again that this was worth the cost. $45,000 a year for safety, opportunity, cultural inclusion. For a place that promised to be different from the schools he grew up in. He walked into the administration office. The woman at the desk didn't look up. "Sign in," she said, sliding a clipboard forward. He filled in his name, checked the box for parent/guardian, and waited. "Still no eye contact. You know where you're going?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "The cafeteria." She handed him a visitor sticker. "Go ahead." No smile, no warmth, nothing. He brushed off the feeling. Not every staff member was friendly. That didn't mean anything. But the moment he stepped into the hallway lined with photos of past graduates, hundreds of faces across decades, all white, all framed in gold, something cold slid down his spine. He swallowed it, kept walking. The cafeteria entrance stood ahead, bright with noise and chatter. Kids talking, laughing, the scrape of chairs, the rattle of trays. Everything normal, everything safe. He took a breath, straightened the bag in his hand, and pushed open the door, and the first thing he saw was his daughter, but not the daughter he knew. Maya's shoulders were hunched. Her face was blotchy, eyes swollen, lips trembling as she clutched her lunch tray. She was standing, not sitting. Standing because a tall white woman with sharp red lipstick and a manicured hand around Maya's upper arm was yanking her out of a seat like she was trash. "Didn't you hear me, young lady?" The woman snapped. "You do not sit here. How many times do I have to tell you the rules?" I'm sorry," Maya whispered, voice so soft Jonathan barely heard it. "I didn't. Saying sorry doesn't mean anything if you keep repeating the same behavior," the woman hissed. Jonathan froze mid-step. The world blurred at the edges. He couldn't make sense of what he was seeing. Not at first. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't a bully. This was an adult. A staff member. A teacher. And she was gripping his daughter's arm hard enough to make the skin redden beneath her fingers. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the woman yanked Maya fully backward. The girl's tray slipped from her hands, hit the floor with a crash, and food splattered across the tiles. A few students gasped, more laughed, some pulled out phones. "My dad pays the same as everyone else." Maya said, her voice breaking. "He does. I promise he—" "Oh, please," the teacher scoffed. "Your father, if he even is your father, probably lied on the forms. You people always find a way to get something for free." Jonathan's heart kicked against his ribs. "You people." The cafeteria lights hummed overhead. The smell of spilled milk filled the air. Jonathan's fingers went numb around the paper bag. He could feel every beat of his pulse inside his skull, but he couldn't move. Not when the teacher shoved Maya toward a corner table tucked beside the trash bins. Not when the students laughed harder. Not when his daughter lowered her head to hide her tears. Only when the teacher said one last thing did the paralysis crack. "Go sit with the rest of the scholarship cases. And if I catch you trying to blend in with the real families again, I'll make sure the administration hears about it." Do you understand? Jonathan didn't hear the rest. Couldn't. All he saw was a girl who looked smaller than he remembered. All he felt was a cold, ancient rage rising in his chest, slow and deadly. All he knew was that his daughter had been suffering in silence, while he sat in an office miles away trying to fix a system he didn't even know was failing her. The bag slipped from his hand. The sandwiches hit the floor with a dull thud. And Maya, sweet, brave Maya, turned at the sound. Her eyes met his, and the pain in them nearly brought him to his knees. For a second, just one. Jonathan wished Maya hadn't seen him. Because the moment their eyes locked, he saw the exact thing every parent prays they'll never witness in their child's face. Shame, not fear, not surprise. Shame, as if she had done something wrong. As if she should apologize to him for being mistreated. As if she'd already gotten used to this. "Dad," she whispered, voice so thin it was barely a sound. What are you doing here?" He couldn't answer, not yet. His throat refused to open. His body refused to move. Everything inside him was working too slowly, too late, too broken. Maya blinked quickly, swiping her cheeks with trembling fingers, like she didn't want to embarrass him, like she didn't want him to see the tears. The teacher, Mrs. Whitmore, according to the badge glinting on her blazer, finally turned around. "Oh," she said, forcing a brittle smile. "Hello. Can I help you? Visitors aren't typically allowed during lunch unless prearranged." Jonathan stared at her, not blinking, not speaking, not breathing, because something in him had gone very, very still. "Sir," she said again, her tone sharpening when he didn't immediately respond. "This is a restricted, my daughter." He finally said, each word coated in ice so cold it made a few nearby students glance over, "was sitting here." Whitmore blinked, confused. I'm not sure I understand. You grabbed her," he continued. "You put your hands on her. You pulled her out of a chair." "Oh," she laughed stiffly, wagging a dismissive hand. "It's nothing like that. She knows the rules. The assigned seating chart is very clear. She has a designated table." He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on Maya. Assigned seating. Maya swallowed, her hands tightening around her sleeves. She didn't answer. Whitmore sighed, annoyed. "It's based on academic grouping and behavioral needs." "Behavioral needs?" Jonathan echoed, his jaw tightening. "My daughter, some students require additional structure," Whitmore said, "especially those who, well, come from backgrounds that require adjustment." Jonathan looked up, slowly. Backgrounds. The cafeteria suddenly felt too quiet. Chairs squeaked, phones lowered, conversations died one by one as the energy shifted. Students sensed something was happening, something big, something dangerous. Whitmore smiled again, tighter this time. "Sir, you don't need to get defensive. We do our best to maintain order here, but sometimes children from non-traditional homes struggle to fit into our culture." Maya flinched. Jonathan's vision blurred for one terrifying second. "Maya," he said softly, taking a small step forward. "How long?" She dropped her eyes. "Maya," he repeated, voice cracking on the second syllable. "How long has this been happening?" Her breath hitched. "Dad, please, it's fine. I didn't want to bother you. I know how busy. How long?" His voice was barely a whisper. She shook her head. "A while." It felt like someone pressed a hand into his chest and squeezed until something tore. Jonathan inhaled sharply. A cold, trembling fury spread through his entire body. Not loud, not explosive, quiet, controlled, the kind of fury that could collapse buildings if it wanted to. Whitmore crossed her arms. "Look, mister." She glanced at his visitor badge. "Hayes, I understand this is emotional for you, but your daughter has had ongoing issues with respect and boundaries. She's been counseled multiple times. This is not the place for a confrontation." Jonathan stared at her. "Respect? Yes. Boundaries? Yes. From who?" he asked. Whitmore blinked. "Excuse me?" He took a step closer. "Respect? Boundaries? Who violated them first? My daughter? Or the adult who grabbed her in front of the entire cafeteria?" A ripple of whispers spread among the students. Whitmore stiffened. I did no such thing. I simply guided her. She's exaggerating. Jonathan's voice dropped even lower. I watched you do it. The teacher's face tightened. I watched you yank her. He continued. I watched you shove her. I watched you humiliate her. That is an outrageous accusation, she snapped, and if you continue to speak to me like this, I will have campus security escort you out. Several students gasped. Jonathan blinked once, slowly, mechanically, as if he were trying to understand the absurdity of her threat. You're going to escort me, he said, out of my daughter's school. Yes, Whitmore said, lifting her chin. Because you are disrupting the environment. Jonathan stared at her for so long that she shifted uncomfortably, her confidence wobbling. Who, he asked quietly, assigned my daughter to sit beside the trash bins? Whitmore opened her mouth, then closed it. Who told her she couldn't sit at any other table? He continued. Who made her feel small enough to apologize when someone mistreated her? Whitmore flushed. We do not discriminate here. Petton Academy is one of the most inclusive. Stop, Jonathan said. The word hit the room like a dropped anchor. His voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. Do not lie to me, not in front of her. Whitmore's eyes flicked around the room, suddenly noticing how many students were recording now. How many were listening? How many had stopped pretending they didn't see? Her voice thinned. Sir, please lower your tone. My tone, Jonathan repeated, stepping forward. Lower. He wasn't angry in the way she expected. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't losing control. He was choosing control. Every syllable measured. Every breath intentional. Every step deliberate. The cafeteria doors opened then, and a man in a navy blazer stepped in, balding, red faced, with a badge that read Assistant Dean. He spotted Whitmore waving him over. Is there a problem? He asked. Before Whitmore could answer, he looked at Jonathan and frowned. And you are her father, Jonathan said, pointing at Maya without looking away from the dean. Oh, the dean said. Well, sir, you aren't allowed to interrupt student lunch periods. There's a protocol, Jonathan repeated, does not include laying hands on my child. The dean's brows shot up as he turned to Whitmore. You put hands on her, Whitmore scoffed defensively. I did no such, she did, Maya whispered. The dean looked between them. Mrs. Whitmore, did you touch her? Whitmore's jaw tightened. I merely redirected her. By grabbing her arm, Jonathan asked. That is not what happened. Whitmore insisted. It's on video. One student said loudly from a nearby table. Several others raised their phones. Whitmore paled. The dean turned to her. Is this true? Those children misinterpret everything. They always take things out of context. Jonathan lifted a hand slightly, silencing the room. I want to speak to the principal. The dean hesitated. She's in a meeting. Get her. Jonathan said, Sir, I don't take orders from. Get her. The dean stiffened, unsure why this man spoke with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. He glanced at the students, the phones, the tension thick enough to choke on. Then he left. Whitmore swallowed hard. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. Jonathan turned back to Maya. Come here, he whispered. She took a slow step, then another, until she was close enough for him to rest a gentle hand on her cheek. You didn't do anything wrong, he said. Do you hear me? Maya's lip trembled. Dad, I didn't want you to worry. You're always so busy, and I didn't want to make things harder. He shook his head, his thumb wiping away a tear. You never make things harder, never. She pressed her forehead into his chest, and Jonathan closed his eyes, holding her small, shaking body against him. Students watched, silent now. Even Whitmore looked away. After a long moment, Maya whispered, Dad, I didn't tell you because I thought maybe this was normal here. Everyone treats me like I don't belong, like I'm only here because of some quota. Jonathan's eyes opened slowly. Dangerous slowly. Who told you that? Maya hesitated, then, barely audible, she did. Whitmore stiffened. That is a complete enough, Jonathan said again. The cafeteria doors burst open. The principal rushed in. A tall woman with short gray hair, pearl earrings, and the kind of posture you only see in people who believe they run the world. "Mr. Hayes," she said, breathless, "I'm sorry for the delay. We were not informed that you were visiting today." Jonathan looked at her. She blanched because she recognized him. Of course she did. She read newspapers, she watched hearings, she posted about school reform on her professional account, and now the Secretary of Education stood in her cafeteria, surrounded by spilled food and tear-stained silence. "Sir," she began carefully, "there seems to be a misunderstanding." "No," Jonathan said, "there isn't. Whatever my staff has communicated, I assure you, your staff grabbed my daughter." The principal's face froze. "Your staff assigned her to sit beside the trash cans." Her throat bobbed. "Your staff publicly humiliated her." Whitmore flushed deep red, shrinking behind the principal. "And your school," Jonathan continued, "allowed this to happen long enough for her to believe it was normal." The principal opened her mouth. "Sir, this is extremely serious, and we will launch an internal. I am the Secretary of Education," Jonathan said, "and I don't care about your internal anything." Silence slammed into the room. Principal's eyes widened. Whitmore swayed. The students' phones rose higher. Jonathan took another step forward, his voice low, steady, lethal. "You believed my daughter was powerless. You believed I was absent. You believed we were the kind of family you could mistreat quietly." He leaned in. "You believed wrong." Marcus stood there frozen, still hearing the echo of that voice replay inside his skull. "You think I don't know who you are." The way the man said it, the way he smirked, the way his eyes lingered with a kind of twisted satisfaction. It crawled under Marcus's skin, and the cook, Dorian, just stood at the sink, shoulders stiff, hands under cold water, pretending he didn't hear a thing, pretending he wasn't trembling inside. Marcus watched him, the young man's jaw tightening, then releasing, as though wrestling with something he had carried far longer than tonight. The kitchen felt heavier, like the building itself knew a storm was coming. Marcus took a breath. "Dorian," he said quietly, "you want to tell me what that was about?" Dorian didn't turn around. His hands kept scrubbing the same pan over and over, even though the soap had slid off and the water had already drained. He was buying time. Marcus took a step forward. "Talk to me." Dorian finally exhaled, shoulders dropping slightly, and set the pan down. He shut off the sink, but he still didn't turn around. "I told you already," Dorian said. His voice was calm, but drained. "I'm nobody. Just leave it." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Man, that ain't how you scrub a pan when you're nobody. That ain't how you freeze up when a man says he knows your name, knows something you're hiding. You got a whole life you're trying to outrun, and it's catching up to you right here in this kitchen." Dorian's fingers gripped the counter. He lowered his head, the silence between them stretched, tight, wound fragile, and then they heard the front door slam, hard, heavy footsteps, voices, 3 men laughing. Too loud, too cruel for an empty restaurant at 3:30 a.m. Marcus turned his head toward the hallway that led to the dining room. Dorian finally spun around, eyes wide. "Oh no," he whispered, "not him, not them. Why are they back?" Marcus frowned. "Who?" Dorian didn't answer with words. He just moved, quick. He grabbed Marcus by the arm, pulling him into the shadow near the walk-in fridge. "Stay here," Dorian hissed. "Man, what, please," Dorian whispered, "just stay hidden for a second, I'll handle this." Marcus watched him slip out toward the dining area, shoulders squared, face tightening into a version of himself Marcus hadn't seen yet. This wasn't the tired young cook. This wasn't the quiet man washing dishes at dawn. This was someone who had survived things, someone who had been cornered before. Marcus stayed back just enough to observe without being seen. His heartbeat thudded in his throat. He could hear the men now. Their laughter cut through the empty restaurant like knives scraping metal. "Look at this dump. I swear the food tasted like dog food. No wonder they're still open at 3 a.m. And where's that little cook? The one who thinks he can talk back to paying customers." Marcus's jaw clenched. He peeked around the edge of the hallway, just enough to see them, 3 of them young. Early 20s maybe, rich, Boy energy, designer jackets, expensive watches, arrogant smirks. They weren't here to eat. They were here to mess with someone, and then they saw Dorian. Oh, look who decided to come out. One of them crowed, the little kitchen rat. Dorian didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't blink. You need to leave, he said firmly. The men laughed, one clapped mockingly. Oh, he's brave tonight. The tallest one stepped forward, the leader, the same voice Marcus had heard earlier, the one who had said, "You think I don't know who you are." Marcus looked closer. The kid's eyes glinted with recognition when he saw Dorian, as though this wasn't their first time crossing paths. Dorian straightened. "Whatever you think you know about me," he said quietly, "it's none of your business. Leave." The tall guy smirked. "It's everybody's business when your name is Dorian Briggs." Dorian froze. Marcus inhaled sharply. Briggs, he knew that name. Anyone in the restaurant world did. The Briggs family owned one of the biggest competing restaurant chains in the state. Ruthless reputation, shady business deals, rumors of buying off inspectors, crushing smaller restaurants, and the heir, the oldest son, was plastered across business blogs as the next big thing. Marcus studied the tall young man even closer. Was this? No, it couldn't be, but the smirk, the arrogance, the entitlement dripping from every syllable. It matched every rumor Marcus ever heard about Evan Briggs. Marcus whispered under his breath. The heir, the golden child, the one being groomed to take over his father's empire. And he was standing here at 3:40 a.m., harassing a young cook. Dorian didn't deny the name, he didn't run. He just closed his eyes, as though hearing his own last name spoken aloud made his chest cave in. Evan grinned wider. "Oh yeah, I know exactly who you are, baby brother of the dynasty, the disappointment, the runaway." Marcus felt something cold slide through him. This wasn't a random encounter. This wasn't a coincidence. This was something much deeper. Dorian opened his eyes slowly. His voice was steady but quiet. "I'm not part of that family anymore. Haven't been for 2 years. Evan burst into laughter. "Oh, trust me, we noticed. You disappeared. Dad said good riddance to the weakest link." The other 2 boys snickered behind him. Dorian swallowed once. "You don't belong here," he said. "This place is closed. Leave now." Evan leaned in close to him, grin stretched cruelly. "We were leaving earlier, but then I saw you talking to that stranger, and I thought, let's come back. Let's see who little Dorian is protecting tonight." He glanced around theatrically. "Where is he, by the way, the guy you were chatting up? Your new boyfriend, your new mentor, or maybe he's just someone else you're planning to disappoint?" Dorian's face twitched, not with fear, with shame. But he didn't respond. Evan smirked. "You know, I always wondered what you were doing after you ran away like a coward, and here you are scrubbing dishes in a ratty little third-rate diner." He looked around with exaggerated disgust. Classy, Marcus's blood boiled, but he stayed still, watching, observing, learning. Something about this wasn't adding up. Why would a Briggs heir track down his brother at a random diner? Unless this diner was already on their radar. Unless they had a plan for this building, for the property, for the block. Unless Dorian wasn't the reason they kept coming back. Marcus felt a chill. Evan suddenly leaned closer to Dorian, voice lowering to a venomous whisper. "You're coming home." Dorian stiffened. "No, I'm not." Evan's grin hardened. "This isn't optional." One of the other boys chimed in. "Your dad's done with the patience thing, bro. He wants you back before the reporters start asking questions. You know, about why the youngest Briggs disappeared without a trace." Marcus watched Dorian's breath shake. Evan continued, "You think washing dishes is your destiny. You think you can hide from who you are. Newsflash, your last name follows you everywhere, and trust me." He smirked darkly. "I'll make sure it does." Dorian's voice cracked for the first time. "What do you want from me?" Evan glanced at the friends behind him, then back at Dorian. "We want you to walk out of here, tonight. No notice, no goodbyes, no explanations. You're coming home before Dad sends someone much worse." Marcus stepped forward from the shadows without thinking. But before he could speak, Evan added, "And if I have to break something in this dump to drag you out of here, I will." Something inside Marcus snapped. He stepped fully into the hallway, voice booming. "Touch one thing in this kitchen, and I promise you, you'll regret it." All three boys spun around. Dorian's eyes widened in horror. "Marcus, no." Evan blinked, then barked a laugh. "Oh wow, you again. The mystery man from earlier." He smirked. "Look, old man." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Old?" Evan shrugged. "Middle-aged. Whatever. You need to mind your business." Marcus stepped closer. "You come into someone else's workplace, threaten property, threaten a worker, threaten a grown man who don't owe you nothing. And you got the nerve to tell me to mind my business." Evan smirked. "Yes, because none of this concerns you." "Oh, it concerns me plenty," Marcus said. "And why is that?" Evan mocked. Marcus didn't blink. "Because this is a restaurant, and everything that happens inside a restaurant concerns me." Evan laughed. "What are you, the janitor?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. "I could be, and you still wouldn't talk to me like that in my own building." The words hung in the air. Dorian's eyes widened. The other boys shifted uncomfortably. Evan scoffed. "Your building? Please, this place is a dump. No one with money would set foot in here." Marcus stared at him, cold and steady. "Son, money ain't the same as class, and you standing here right now proves you ain't got neither." Evan's face hardened instantly. The room dropped into silence. Marcus took another step forward. "Now let me make myself real clear," he said, voice low and controlled. "Dorian ain't going nowhere he don't wanna go, and you and your two little shadows, you're gonna walk out that door, quiet, calm, without breaking so much as a salt shaker." Evan's jaw twitched. "You can't talk to me like that. Do you know who I am?" Marcus's stare didn't move. "Do you know who I am?" Evan blinked. Something in Marcus's tone made him hesitate for the first time tonight. Marcus stepped even closer. "I'm the man who sees through you," he said. "You walk around like your last name makes you a king. Like you can threaten people, scare people, force people. But I've seen men like you my whole life, loud, soft-handed. No backbone unless daddy's money is in the room with you." Evan's lips parted, anger flickering in his eyes. Marcus didn't stop. "You think you're big tonight 'cause you got two boys behind you. You think you're a wolf 'cause you raised your voice at someone smaller." He shook his head. "Nah, wolves don't brag. Wolves don't threaten. Wolves don't bully." He pointed at Evan's chest. "You're a pup, barking loud, hoping someone believes you." One of the boys shifted nervously. Evan stepped forward. Too close, face red. "You don't know anything about me." Marcus didn't move. "You want to test that theory?" he asked quietly. Evan swallowed. Something behind his bravado was cracking. "You got 5 seconds to leave," Marcus said. 4, 3, 2, fine. Evan snapped suddenly, spinning around. "Come on, this place isn't worth it." His friends followed quickly, more shaken than they wanted to show. But before Evan reached the door, he turned his head slightly. "This isn't over," he said. "Dorian belongs to us, and you don't know who you're messing with." Marcus's voice came soft but sharp. "I know bullies when I see 'em." Evan's eyes narrowed. Then he stormed out with his entourage. The door slammed behind them the moment they were gone. Dorian collapsed into the nearest chair like he had been holding his breath for years. Marcus walked over slowly. "You all right?" he asked gently. Dorian nodded weakly. "No, not really." Marcus grabbed the chair across from him and sat down. "You ready to tell me the truth now?" Marcus asked. Dorian stared at his hands, at the faint tremble in them. "I didn't just leave my family," he whispered. "I escaped them." Marcus's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Dorian lifted his eyes, filled with something between exhaustion and pain. "My family owns almost 300 restaurants," he said. "And every single one of them was built on lies, intimidation, and things I couldn't be part of anymore." He swallowed hard. "Evan isn't just my brother. He's my replacement. The son they actually wanted. The one who did everything they asked. The one who never questioned anything." Marcus listened quietly. "But me," Dorian said. "I questioned everything. I asked why workers were underpaid, why corners were cut, why our kitchens weren't safe, why we treated people like disposable tools." Marcus felt something tighten behind his ribs. I tried to fix things, Dorian whispered. I tried to expose what was happening inside, and when my father found out, he paused. Marcus didn't push, he waited. Dorian's voice cracked. He called me a liability. Said if I ever crossed him again, he'd make sure nobody in the entire industry would hire me. He'd blacklist me forever. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. So I ran, Dorian said. I changed my name on applications. I started over. I washed dishes, cooked on night shifts, anything just to stay away. Marcus leaned forward slightly, and then tonight happened. Dorian nodded brokenly. They found me, and Evan. Evan thinks dragging me back fixes everything. Marcus took a slow breath. Dorian, he said softly, why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you go to a lawyer, the press, someone? Dorian laughed bitterly. Because nobody wins against the Briggs family. Marcus exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing. We'll see about that. Dorian blinked. What? Marcus stood up slowly, the weight of a decision settling into his posture. I need you to trust me, he said. But first, I need to know something. Dorian looked up. Marcus locked eyes with him. Are you done running? Dorian froze. The question hit him with more force than a punch. He swallowed, then nodded. Marcus nodded back. Good, because tomorrow morning. He took a deep breath. Your life is about to change. Dorian frowned. How? Why? What are you planning? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He walked to the counter, picked up his jacket, and slung it over his arm. Then he turned around. I'm done hiding too, Marcus said quietly. Dorian blinked. I don't understand. Marcus took one step toward him. His voice dropped to a whisper. That boy earlier, Evan, he asked me if I knew who he was, and I do. He paused, but tomorrow he's gonna learn who I am. Dorian stared at him in confusion, breath slowing. Marcus walked toward the door. Get some rest, he said softly. Part of your past came knocking tonight. He opened the door slightly, cold dawn air brushing against them. Tomorrow. He looked back over his shoulder. Your future knocks back. And he stepped out, leaving Dorian sitting there, stunned, wondering who this stranger really was and what kind of storm was coming with sunrise. He would find out, but not yet. Not until the reveal. The sun hadn't even risen yet, but the sky had begun turning that soft gray. Blue that meant the world was waking up slowly. Dorian hadn't slept, not a second. He sat at the back table with a half-drunk cup of cold coffee, staring at the kitchen doorway as though Marcus might walk through it at any moment. His mind replayed everything, Evan, the threats, the past he thought he buried. And Marcus stepping in like a wall made of quiet thunder. He didn't understand who this man was, not yet. He only knew one thing. He felt safer with Marcus in the room than he ever felt in his own family's mansion. He checked the clock again, 6:13 a.m. Any minute now, staff would start arriving for the morning shift. Any minute now, the world would turn back on. Any minute now, the front door unlocked. Dorian tensed. A silhouette stepped in, tall, calm, familiar, Marcus, but not the Marcus from last night. This Marcus was dressed in a clean charcoal blazer, dark blue shirt, no tie, polished watch, fresh cut shave. Composed, commanding, not pretending anymore. Dorian stood slowly, heart pounding. Marcus smiled faintly. You ready? For what? Dorian asked breathlessly. For the truth, Marcus said. He walked toward the counter, picking up a clipboard left out for morning prep, but he didn't look at it. He looked at Dorian. You came in every night, Marcus said softly, never late, never complained, worked harder than everyone, did the jobs nobody else wanted, and still kept your head down. Dorian swallowed. I just needed work. No, Marcus said gently. You needed refuge. Dorian's breath hitched. Marcus continued. I've been watching restaurants my whole life. I know when someone shows up because they love the craft, and when someone shows up because they're running from a war they didn't ask for. Dorian lowered his eyes. You're a good man, Marcus said, and good men don't run forever. Dorian's voice cracked. Marcus, you didn't answer me last night. You said Evan was gonna learn who you are. He stepped closer. Who are you? Marcus looked at him. Really looked at him. Then breathed out slowly. You'll find out in a few minutes, he said. They're coming. Dorian froze. Who? Evan, Marcus said, and his father. The blood drained from Dorian's face. My father, no. No, I can't face him. Marcus, he'll. Marcus raised a hand. Steady, calm, unmoved. He won't do anything to you, Marcus said. Not today. Dorian shook his head. You don't understand what he's capable of. Oh, I do, Marcus said. I've known men like your father for a long time. Dorian's voice broke. He destroys people. Marcus nodded. Then he's about to meet someone he can't destroy. Before Dorian could ask what that meant, the door exploded open. Not literally, but it slammed so hard the front windows rattled. Evan stormed in first, eyes blazing with humiliation left over from last night. Behind him walked a man in a charcoal overcoat, cufflinks glinting, cold smile carved into his face. Samuel Briggs, the patriarch. The Empire, the man whose name turned young chefs pale and made restaurant owners triple check their paperwork. Dorian went cold. Samuel Briggs stepped forward, scanning the room with slow disdain. So this, he said, is where my son has been wasting his life. Dorian said nothing. He couldn't speak. His knees felt weak. Marcus stepped forward calmly. Morning, Marcus said. Samuel blinked at him once, uninterested. Evan pointed immediately. That's the guy, he said. That's the one who threatened us. Samuel's eyes slid toward Marcus lazily. And who are you? Marcus smiled politely. Well, that depends, he said. Are you asking as a father or as a businessman? Samuel bristled slightly. He wasn't used to being questioned. As a man who owns everything his eyes land on, Samuel said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Everything. Samuel crossed his arms. And who exactly are you to speak to me that way? Marcus's voice softened. Dangerously. I'm the owner. Samuel blinked. Owner of what? This restaurant, Marcus said. This building, this block, and 15 more locations in this district alone. Evan's mouth fell open. Dorian's head snapped up. Samuel's expression twitched. Just barely, Marcus stepped forward, his presence expanding like a quiet tidal wave. My name is Marcus Hale, he said calmly. Hale Hospitality Group. The room froze. Evan's face turned white. Samuel's jaw clenched. Dorian just stared at him, breath caught. Marcus continued, voice steady, controlled, deadly quiet. I'm the man Forbes called the golden standard of safe workplaces. I'm the man your father's lawyers tried to discredit 6 years ago. I'm the man who refused your family's buy-out offer 3 times. He tilted his head. And the man who documented every illegal practice your chain has gotten away with. Samuel's mask cracked, only slightly. Dorian whispered, stunned. You're that Marcus Hale. Marcus didn't look at him. Not yet. He kept his eyes on Samuel. You should have done your homework before stepping into any building with my name on it. Marcus said, I trained every employee here personally. I know their stories, their habits, their strengths, their fears. He took a slow step closer. And most importantly, I know how they're treated when no one is watching. Samuel stiffened. Watch your tone. Marcus smiled. That's exactly what I intend to do, starting with your sons. Evan sputtered. We didn't do anything illegal. Marcus slid a hand into his blazer pocket, pulled out his phone, pressed a button, a recording played. Evan's own voice filled the restaurant. And if I have to break something in this dump to drag you out of here, I will. Dorian belongs to us. You don't know who you're messing with. Evan froze. Samuel's face turned to stone. Marcus locked eyes with him. See, Samuel, your son is not just reckless. He's violent, he's threatening, and he's dumb enough to admit it on tape. Dorian whispered, Marcus, you recorded that. Marcus finally turned to him, eyes softening. I record everything that threatens my workers. Evan's voice cracked. You can't do anything with that. Marcus stepped toward him slowly. Boy, I can bury you with this. Samuel barked, enough, this is absurd. My son is not. Marcus cut him off. Your son threatened physical damage to private property. He harassed one of my staff, entered a closed business without permission, and admitted intent to commit bodily harm. He took another step, and you raised him. Dorian flinched slightly at the cold truth in Marcus's tone. Samuel straightened. What do you want? Marcus didn't hesitate. I want him to apologize. Evan scoffed. I'm not apologizing to. Marcus stepped in front of him sharply, 1 foot from Evan's face. You will apologize to Dorian, Marcus said. You will leave this restaurant, and you will never step foot in a hay-loaned building again. He paused, and trust me, you step into a lot more of them than you realize. Samuel spoke through gritted teeth. And if we don't? Marcus smiled lightly. I leak this recording to every labor inspector in the state. I send copies to every major food safety agency, to every journalist who's ever written about your company, to every city council member who'd love to investigate your real estate practices, and to every competitor you've ever threatened. He lowered his voice. You know exactly what happens when a Briggs scandal hits the news during a licensing year. Samuel's breath stuttered. Evan swallowed hard. What? What do you want from me? Marcus stepped aside, motioning toward Dorian. Start with him. Evan looked at Dorian, truly looked, and for the first time, fear replaced arrogance. I'm sorry, Evan said quietly. His voice shook. For what I said, for everything. Dorian closed his eyes briefly, pain flickering through him. But he nodded once. Marcus looked at Samuel. Your turn. Samuel stared at Marcus long and hard. Then he exhaled through his teeth. My son and I will leave you alone, he said stiffly. Marcus shook his head. That's not an apology. Samuel's nostrils flared. He turned toward Dorian. His voice came out low, cold, forced. I apologize, not from the heart, not close, but the words had never passed his mouth before. Marcus nodded once. Now leave, he said. Samuel clenched his jaw, but he turned. Evan followed. The door opened. Then Samuel paused, looked back at Dorian. You think you're safe with him? He sneered. He'll throw you away the moment you're inconvenient, just like everyone else. Dorian's face fell. Marcus stepped forward so quickly Samuel actually flinched. This is the last time you speak to him, Marcus said. You've lost that right. Samuel opened his mouth, but Marcus's eyes cut him silent. He walked out. The door slammed. Silence returned like a warm blanket. Dorian collapsed into a chair, breathing shakily. Marcus finally exhaled deeply, rolling his shoulders back. How did you do that? Dorian whispered. Marcus looked at him softly. You don't win against bullies by yelling. He sat across from him. You win by letting them hear themselves and giving them a choice between humility and collapse. Dorian's eyes welled. You saved me. Marcus shook his head gently. I protected you. That's different. Dorian blinked back tears. Why? Marcus's voice softened. Because I know what it feels like to be the kid everyone counted out. The kid nobody protected. The kid who spoke up and paid the price. He took a breath. And because the industry we love is a battlefield, the only way we survive is if we stop fighting each other and start protecting each other. Dorian wiped his face. Marcus, what happens now? Marcus leaned forward. Now you stop hiding. You come work for me officially. Full-time, real salary, real training, real future. Dorian stared at him. I'm not good enough to. Marcus cut him off. You are. You just don't believe it yet. Dorian shook his head slowly, overwhelmed. What about my family? They'll never stop. Marcus smiled. I know. Then he leaned back. And that's why you'll be standing with someone who's not afraid of them. Dorian swallowed. You really want me? In your company? Marcus nodded firmly. You've got integrity. You've got heart. You've got the kind of moral backbone you can't teach. He smiled softly. You remind me of me when I was your age. Tears finally spilled from Dorian's eyes. Thank you, he whispered. Marcus stood and offered his hand. You earned it. He said, I just cleared the noise. Dorian took his hand, his grip trembling but steady. Marcus helped him up. Let's get out of here, Marcus said. We've got orientation in an hour, and you got a whole life waiting for you. Dorian nodded, but before they walked out, he turned back, looked at the kitchen one last time. This place saved me, he whispered. No, Marcus said gently. You saved yourself. This place just gave you shelter. Dorian smiled through tears. And you gave me a future. Marcus patted his shoulder. Now let's go build it. They stepped out into the rising sun. New day, new chapter, no more running, for the first time in his life. Dorian Briggs walked into the world without fear, and for the first time in a long time. Marcus Hale walked beside someone who reminded him exactly why he built his empire in the first place. And as they left, the diner behind the storm had ended, the healing had begun. Subscribe to our stories, more life-changing stories every week.